In general, it seems Ferraris can be divided into two basic categories: the mid-mounted V8 or V6 engined sports cars and the front-engine V12 Grand Touring cars. However, many people overlook a 24-year legacy of Ferrari's mid-mounted flat 12 sports cars: the 365 Boxer, the 512 Boxer, and the Testarossa series. However, the Testarossa was a wild and innovative design that rocked the automotive world and still remains an icon almost 40 years later. Nowadays, if Ferrari comes out with a mid-mounted V12 car, it's a momentous event. It's something that people kind of go a little crazy for. But back in the 80s, it was kind of the status quo for Ferrari. It was an era where the wild cars like the Testarossa were more normal to produce. Ferrari actually made production models of them, whereas nowadays, yes, there are some V12 mid-mounted Ferraris like the F50 and the Enzo and the LaFerrari, but all of those cars are very limited production. If you think about the Testarossa series and then add in the Boxers, there were over 10,000 of these built throughout the different series and lots of Boxers as well. It was a more commonplace thing to imagine a mid-mounted 12-cylinder Ferrari, which I wish they brought that back today, but there's something about these cars being a one-time, in their era kind of configuration that helps keep them so iconic today. The Testarossa was not the first mid-mounted 12-cylinder Ferrari, but it was definitely the most popular. So the first car was the Boxer series, the 365 BB, 512 BB, and 512 BBI. But the big problem with those cars was they were not made for the US market. They were only made for the European market. America was missing out on a 12-cylinder Ferrari. Another issue with the Boxer is because of the giant 12-cylinder engine mounted in the back, handling can get a little iffy if you don't really know what you're doing. And there was some problems with the cabin getting really hot inside. So Ferrari completely redesigned the car and came up with the Testarossa, and it was an instant hit. It really just attracted people all over the world, and you could finally buy the 12-cylinder Ferraris in the US. So it was an instant success. Now, I have done a bunch of videos on Testarossas before, and I go into a lot of detail on the engines, the differences between the Testarossa, 512TR, 512M. So if you're interested in learning more about them, then watch some of my other videos on these cars, because I give a lot of different details all about that kind of stuff. The Testarossa really is the last of the flat 12-cylinder mid-mounted Ferraris. I know I mentioned some of the cars like the Enzo and F50 that are mid-mounted 12-cylinder Ferraris, but those are V12s and not flat 12s. So this really is the last of its era. And who knows if Ferrari is ever going to come out with another flat 12 car like this, but I don't see it anytime in the near future. I hope so, that would be amazing. The reason that I've been calling it a flat 12, whereas like the Boxer, people do tend to correct me when I say Boxer because it's not a Boxer engine. The cylinders fire in a certain order where the opposing pistons do not fire at the same time. That's what a Boxer engine is basically the firing order and how it's mechanically moving. Whereas on this engine, it fires in a different order, and so it's not opposing sides going at the same time. And same on the Boxer. Even though it's called a 512 BB, Berlinetta Boxer, that wasn't the factory original name, but even the factories adopted it now. So it's kind of just the easy term to use for these engines is a Boxer engine. Another thing about these cars, I've mentioned it in my other videos, but the reason it's called Testarossa is a throwback to the 50s Testarossas. And they were named that. Testarossa means redhead. And they actually painted the valve covers red on these cars. It was the second time they did that, the first time being in the original 250 Testarossas. I guess the question is, why did Ferrari drop the mid-mounted 12-cylinder cars from their basic lineup? So if you look at 1989, Ferrari had a kind of odd lineup of cars. They had the Testarossa, and they had the 412 as their front-engine V12 car. During that time period, Enzo Ferrari passed away, which obviously caused some waves at the factory. Montezemolo took over the factory and decided to try and reorganize the car's lineup because the Mondial T and the 348 were not overly popular. The 412 was losing popularity, and the F40 was unobtainable to most normal enthusiasts. He made some drastic changes. So by the mid-90s, let's say 1996, they had a very different kind of lineup. Montezemolo had introduced the 456 and the 550 as their front-engine V12 cars. They both serve different purposes because one is a two-seater Grand Touring car, so a bit more sporty, and the 456 was the four-seater, so more accommodating to families. And then for their sports cars, they had the 355, which was a huge hit, and then the F50 as their elite status car. They didn't add in any mid-engine 12-cylinder cars to that lineup. And it's speculated that the reason for that is because it's a very niche kind of buyer pool where the front-engine V12 still fits that V12 kind of buyer, but also leaves more room in the trunk for luggage, a little easier to handle. Of course, we miss the fun Testarossas, those kind of wild cars. But I gotta say, Montezemolo was an amazing businessman, and it was probably a smart move on his part. I can't complain because it helped make the Testarossa so iconic. There's no saying whether Ferrari will ever come out with another mid-mounted 12-cylinder flat engine car again. And even if they did, I don't see it shocking the world with such a crazy design like the Testarossa series did. So the Testarossa will definitely forever be an icon in the automotive world. It's that 80s feel to it that just you can't replicate or replace. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and learned a little something new about the Testarossa. If you like this, then please subscribe and stay tuned because we got a lot more coming very soon.